What's better than the Super Bowl? What's better than Super Bowl commercials? This show. It's time for Zero Blitz. Welcome to Zero Blitz with Frank and Fitz, presented by Prime. It does have a good rhyme to it. I'm going to say Zero Blitz with Frank and Fitz, presented by Prime. Feels good. I'm with that.
Didn't we start with Schwab and Fitz?
Isn't that what
we're going to go with?
I think next year we're evolving already. We are, by the way, coming at you right now from one of the fan caves inside the Yahoo Sportsbook at the Venetian Resort, Las Vegas. This is where we started this football season, was in this room. And now as we get ready for the Super Bowl, we are ending the football season in this room. It feels like this very cool moment, but you're right. Like the other night, we're sitting around, may or may not have had a cocktail or two, and all of a sudden it came out, Schwabby and the Fitz. I just feel like it's got a ring to it, Schwabby, but Schwabby just sounds cool, and the Fitz makes me feel like we could do a whole animation package. Schwabby and the Fitz, like they have little animated Frank.
This is gonna be a long off season, ain't it? Well, you got a lot of ideas in your head.
Spending the whole budget for the entire company on Schwabby and the Fitz animation. This feels like, look. Maybe it's on my mind because Nickelodeon is doing their broadcast of the Super Bowl, and that makes me think of me and you, dynamic duos. Although I'll be honest, I'm jealous. In our dynamic duo, you would obviously be Patrick. I would obviously be SpongeBob, and I really prefer Patrick. I'm more of a Patrick guy than a SpongeBob guy.
Not Squidward? Can I be Squidward?
Oh, Squidward's actually got no. Brett,
I like Mr. Krabs, actually. That is my jam, Mr. Krabs.
That's the only time that anybody says they like crabs. Brett is our producer, one of our producers sitting in the room. He's definitely, well, I'd say he's Squidward-ish. Yeah, I'll go with that. What does that make Stone, producer extraordinaire?
Sandy the Squirrel? I don't know. I'm running out of SpongeBob characters. I'm not that familiar.
No, Sandy is a really good comp, though, because Sandy's like always positive, always happy to be there. You know, that's Stone, while Brett gives me a look like, move on. Let's get to the actual football. All right, it is the Super Bowl edition. We are only days away, and we've been in Vegas all week. So let's start with just talking about the fact that, you know, we're in Vegas and we managed to behave ourselves. Any wild Vegas moment?
Nothing wild, although you were blamed last night for the fireball shots. One of the nights we went out, I was asking, how did we end up doing fireball shots? And you were blamed for that. That was on you.
That is a fair, we had come back to the hotel, and see, this is what happens in Vegas. You come back to the hotel and you have this choose your own adventure opportunity. You can make a good decision or a bad decision. Now, any night I'm in bed by 10 p.m., that's a win. So I was 2-0 against this city. All of a sudden, we walked back into the Luxor where we're staying, and instead of turning around and doing the smart thing, which is going to bed, you and I did the wrong thing. We walked up to the bar, and I said a phrase that should never be spoken in this town. Shot and a drink, and you said yes.
Did I sign off on that?
Yeah, you were the first yes.
Yeah, that sounds like me. No wild stories yet. Nothing I can repeat on air anyway, but I think Vegas has been awesome as a Super Bowl site. I mean, this, as you know, you have more history here than me even, but I've been here many more times than I'd like to admit. It's just a perfect city for a big event, and it is really showing out. And last night, Wednesday night, you could tell all of a sudden it was Super Bowl week. People arrived, NFL Experience was going crazy. Everybody in their jerseys. Saw a Boobie Miles Permian jersey. Like I almost asked the guy where he got it. It's the best jersey I've seen all week. Vegas has been great. I think Vegas is really doing a heck of a job as a host.
If you've been checking out Yahoo Sports, we've been putting up a ton of interviews. We've been down on Radio Row and have a massive setup there. Really cool. And thanks to everybody that's taken the time to come by. I did learn disturbingly today that Sam Hartman has perfect hair and doesn't put any work into it. Like I asked him, you know, because he knows what he's doing. He always looks at the camera and does a little like model flip. And by the way, Sam, jaw drop, like whatever you think of his gorgeous like picture, he's an attractor. Like he walks up and you're like, yeah, I get it. Like it must be a burden to be a starting quarterback at Notre Dame and be, you know, delightfully good looking. But I asked him, I was like, you know what you're doing. He informed me, no product. He was like, I don't even put a comb through it. He's like, just wake up like this. He wakes up with lettuce like that. I don't know how I feel about it.
I know you're talking to me about hair care right now. Like this is, you know, I mean, maybe not the right subject for me. Maybe a sore spot. I don't know.
Okay, well, I mean, but you rock.
Do you wake up with that? Is it how much time do you put in on that?
No, it doesn't take much time. It does. I will reveal to the world though. A lot of times I blow dry it so it stands up just a little bit taller. Like I like to get it to stand up a little tall and then
No frame of reference here for me. Nothing. Nothing.
Look at how easy it is. Brett, again, is like, oh my God, move on to something. All right, so let's get into a Super Bowl topic that is Vegas related, okay? We're going to play a little word association game. I'll give you a word that we think of with Vegas, and then we'll come up with the Super Bowl storyline that ties to it. This seems delightful, okay? Are we ready to start this?
Yeah.
How about we start with Hangover?
To me, that is who's losing this game. Who's going to come out on the wrong end of this? And we'll get the predictions in a second. But the San Francisco 49ers, if they lose this game, I'm not giving away my prediction yet, how early would they get back? I mean, I talked to them about 4 years ago, talked to a lot of guys on Monday about what's it like to lose a Super Bowl. It takes a long time to get over that. And we always think the team that loses is just going to be right back. Philadelphia Eagles last year. I thought, Philadelphia Eagles, it's a budding dynasty. It's not that easy. With the Chiefs, I think the Chiefs are going to be fine because they got Patrick Mahomes, right? The 49ers aren't guaranteed to get back here. Any Super Bowl loser is not guaranteed to get back here. So when you say hangover, I'm thinking of which team loses because it's going to be hard to get back more for the 49ers than the Chiefs because Pat is Pat and he's always going to give the Chiefs a shot. But when I think of hangover, I think of the 49ers don't win this. You don't know when your next shot's coming, especially for a guy like Kyle Shanahan, who has dealt with so many heartbreaking Super Bowl losses and NFC Championship game, lost to the Rams a couple years ago. So when you say hangover, I think 49ers. 49ers might be the team that really needs to win this game.
The Kyle Shanahan part of this conversation is an important one. Before I get my answer to hangover, think about the narratives that are created around certain players based on their success in the biggest games. Now think about the narratives created around coaches, right? There was a period, we forget this, where Andy Reid he can't win the big game, right? Like it was just repeated every time he got there because that Eagles team just couldn't figure out a way to get through it. Is it not fair to say, man, if you're Kyle Shanahan, at some point there's a little pressure. Like, let's remember that the last time these two teams played in the Super Bowl, going into the fourth quarter, it looked like the 49ers had it. They collapsed. Now, part of that's on Jimmy G, but part of that's also on the coaching staff. Oh, speaking of collapses, 28-3 is one of the biggest collapses we've ever seen, right? So you start thinking about pressure. I do think that there's a ton of pressure on Kyle Shanahan to prove that he can outcoach Andy Reid, and he's got to outcoach Andy Reid in this game for them to have a chance. If he doesn't, when there's not a quarterback to blame. And I don't think Brock Purdy's got the street cred yet to get the blame. When there's no quarterback to blame, that blame is going to go straight to Kyle Shanahan.
One Super Bowl changes everything. You mentioned Reid, and I think that's a perfect example. Going into that Super Bowl 4 years ago, Andy Reid's probably a Hall of Famer, but we're not sure. He wins that game and he's first ballot. We don't even question it anymore. And obviously he's won the second one and he's far beyond even a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of the all-time greats. One Super Bowl changes your entire legacy as a coach. I think it's huge for Kyle to get that one off his back so he doesn't have to answer. He's been answering questions about Super Bowl pain and Super Bowl failures all week. Every time I've been around him, somebody's going to bring up 28-3. Somebody's going to bring up the last time they lost to the Chiefs. That all goes away with one win.
So I'll give you a weird hangover answer, right? Follow me here. Somebody that went through this the other day. Thanks, Fireball. So think about sometimes the thing you got to do in a hangover is just get through it. And when you get through it, you actually feel a lot better. I would say that the Chiefs' offense this year has gotten through the hangover. And by that, I mean, think about how difficult it was for much of the year for them to generate anything. That hasn't been the case in the playoffs, right? The ascension of Rashee Rice, the ascension of Isaiah Pacheco, all while Kelsey suddenly wakes up and realizes, hey, it's the playoffs. I got to give a damn now. You put all that together, it feels to me like they're on the other side of a hangover. For the first several weeks, it was, man, something's a little off. They got the headache. They don't feel good. They got the meat sweats, all of these things happening. They've now made it through those sweats, and all of a sudden they are the Chiefs that I thought they would be.
Absolutely. And I think, and I just wrote about this before I started taping the podcast, I think Isaiah Pacheco, you mentioned him, is not getting enough credit for his role in rejuvenating this Chiefs offense, getting over the hangover maybe to keep with the theme here. Isaiah Pacheco is averaging more than 20 carries per game since he came back off his injury, basically. There's no running back in the NFL that averaged 20 carries per game this season. They are just riding him. They said, you know what, our formula to win, run the ball, play defense. It's Patrick Mahomes still. It's Patrick Mahomes. He's always going to be that dude. But this is really a kind of a ground and pound Chiefs team. It's unlike anything we've seen, and that's how they got over this hangover, to speak.
I've said this on multiple videos for Yahoo. The over on rushing attempts has been hit by Isaiah Pacheco in every game of the playoffs.
I took it.
Rushing
I took it
attempts.
for the Super Bowl already.
Right,
Yeah,
me too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I'm not even talking about yards, like, because I know the yards are part of that. But what that tells you is that this offense is committed to running the football. And knowing that they're committed to running the football, the method for this particular Chiefs team is we're going to run the ball, we're going to control it, and then we're going to let Mahomes make the plays he needs to make along the way. That is just part of the methodology of how they win football games right now. So I think you're right. Pacheco deserves a ton of credit. All right, give me a Vegas for you.
I got one for you.
Okay.
I'm going to go through roulette because I want your long shot. I want your which of the ball's going to drop in the wheel, right? We got 1 of 38 or whatever. Who's your long shot really impact guy for the Super Bowl?
George Kittle. And I know, like, I'm only saying George Kittle is a long shot because I hear everybody talk about Pacheco. And I hear everybody now talking about Rashee Rice. And I hear everybody talk about Travis Kelce. Great story of Kelce, if Mr. Taylor Swift can go out and win the MVP, all of these conversations. I know McCaffrey's going to be a big part of this game. But also, I trust Spags defensively. I trust the Chiefs defense to be very sound. But here's what I'm thinking. If they've got to give a ton of resources and attention to stopping McCaffrey, and then they're going to make sure they can stop Debo, whatever way, shape, or form they can, it's going to create opportunity for Kittle. I think Kittle is not getting enough MVP love in this conversation because to me, it feels like he's that guy you're going to wake up and say, wait, he has 6 catches on 7 targets, but 3 touchdowns. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that sort of, especially because Brock Purdy is efficient. And more than anything, he's efficient and accurate in this offense. Take what the defense gives you. They're going to have to decide one thing to let happen. I think it's Kittle.
Yeah, I can see it. The only thing against that is the Chiefs defense was great against tight ends all year. They really were. Until week 18 when nobody played, they had not allowed the other team's tight ends to combine for 100 yards in a game. They did in week 18 Chargers. It doesn't matter. They've been great against tight ends all year, but Kittle is that guy. We've seen this 49ers offense, and what they do is, oh, this is a Debo game. This is a Kittle game. This is every game's a McCaffrey game. But Ayuk sometimes, they really spread it around. And I could see this being a Kittle game. He's a big time player. I love him. I agree with you. I think that you could look up and it's been like, wow, is George Kittle the MVP of this game? I could definitely see it. I got one for you down the list. Like we're going down the list here. Okay. I think Marquez Valdez-Scantling might have a big game here because he's the kind of guy who he's struggled a lot during the season, right? But he came on late. All of a sudden, it seems like Patrick Mahomes has more confidence in him going into this game. And when you think about the 49ers defense, what are you trying to take away? Strangely enough, it's probably the run game and Isaiah Pacheco. I think that could open up MVS for some plays downfield. Like he's not going to be your 8-catch guy in this game, but could he make the catch or two that really turns his game around? I could see it as just being a total wild card of that guy made the biggest play in the Super Bowl. Why not MVS? Again, it would almost be storybook thing, he struggles all year with the drops and the controversies and all that. And he comes up big in the Super Bowl with a big play. We know he has that big play capability. And we saw it later in the year with just a little more confidence in how he was playing.
His body language certainly this week has not spoken to any lack of confidence. I think that's the other part of it too. Like one thing that really struck me at media night, the opening night is, for anyone that didn't see it on the NFL Network, they put superstars up on the podium. So Rashee Rice, by the way, already made the podium. Big statement for him. But then the rest of the wide receiver group is just sort of walking around on the field. So you have access. And as we were walking around and talking to different players, it really struck me that the wide receivers in general had a calm to them and a confidence to them. Like as much as we are talking about the drop issues, I didn't see any of that reflective in their body language or in their tone of the way they were answering things.
Did you talk to Kadarius?
No, I couldn't get near Kadarius. Everybody else was around
him, but he was exceptionally confident, let's say. He's like, I'm still a number one. I believe he had that line. I wasn't around him either. I was talking to Mahomes a lot of the time around his podium. But yes, to your statement. Like,
and I talked to Miko for a while, and he was adamant that wide receiver room is fine, and they understand the way they're viewed, and they don't really give it to him. And I don't think that that's always the case. Sometimes you come into this week, and you can just feel it. You can feel it in the national championship game, too. You can feel a different energy between Washington and Michigan at press day, like at media day. It was palpable, right? I didn't feel that from anybody with the Chiefs. I didn't feel any level of from any of the wide receivers, any level of sort of shrinking in this moment.
Yeah, and I mean, to my original point on their receivers and your point too, Kelsey's going to be Kelsey. Rashee's going to be, but Spags can take away those guys, I think, in a passing game. Who else steps up? I'm saying MVS. We'll see what it is. It's going to be very interesting to see the chess match because Andy can devise ways to get guys who aren't necessarily stars involved and make big plays.
All right. So give us next association just based on what we're doing this week. Party.
When I think about this game and Andy Reid, he says he's not retiring, right? Like, he's basically put it out there. He even kind of dodged it today, but I just wonder what he has cooked up in this game. I don't mean to bring up a sore spot for you, Mr. Raiders fan, but ring around the rosy. I think Andy Reid's going to have fun with this one. It just seems like he loves this kind of moment, getting weird, week off. He's going to be in the lab devising some stuff. But I also think this Chiefs team as a whole is just so, to your point, confident, loose. They've been here before. It's not a big deal for them. I think they're going to go out and have some fun, man. I think this Chiefs team is, again, I'm not giving away my prediction, but I just think they're they're enjoying the moment a little more than the 49ers. You could tell, like you said, different energies between teams. I just think the Chiefs have done this so often that they're just totally comfortable in this environment. And I think it's going to be a party for them on Sunday, just as far as they're not going to be tense. They're not going to be tight. They're just going to enjoy the moment.
So my party answer was actually going to be media night. Along the same lines. When you talk to Chiefs players, I mean, the number of guys that were saying, oh man, I just always liked this night. It's one of my favorite things. Like, you've been in enough of these nights that that, right? The guys were dancing around on the field and they were having a good time. That wasn't the energy that I got from the 49ers. The 49ers were a little bit more like, how does this work? And I'm not saying that they were tight in any way. They weren't. It just felt like they were a little less sure of how all of it feels. And, one thing I talked to Emmett Smith about today that's up on Yahoo Sports as one of our interviews, I asked him what difference it makes having been there. And he said that the hardest thing you have to do as a professional athlete is learn when to ramp your emotions up. And because this week is so much, a lot of players will start to get too energetic on Thursday, Friday. And it made me think of my buddy Harry Douglas that played for years. And Harry would tell you that he listened to classical music in the morning because it soothed them, right, on game days, because he found that he was hours early. He was too energetic, too hyped, and it changed his energy level in the game. So he had to figure out how to ramp. I walked away from that thinking, man, the fact that the Chiefs know this and we're having a party just means they know how to handle the energy. I think that's going to be a big part of the early portion of this game.
Yeah, Andy Reid was asked today about, you come out, you run out of the tunnel, and you still got 20 minutes. You got the anthem and you got America the Beautiful and all this stuff going on. You still got a long time. And Andy was like, yeah, we've dealt with this before. We know what's happening. We understand that get off your feet, calm down a little bit. And he also talked about something, the field conditions, which has been a big story, obviously, all week. He's like, yeah, we're ready for anything. Last year we slipped around a lot, but our equipment guys brought the whole house this year. We're good to go. And just, again, not that the 49ers, like you said, I don't think they're tight necessarily, but it's just different. A lot of these, I think there's only 9 guys from that Super Bowl team 4 years ago for them. You just don't know a lot of this stuff. You don't know. Kyle does. And I think that's a big deal. And those 9 guys are all leaders on the team by this point, basically. You're Fred Warner, you're Dre Greenlaw, Kittle, Bosa. But if you haven't done this before, it's something different. It's not even the same football game you're used to playing until kickoff. And then it becomes that. But even halftime, Usher's going to play for a long time, man. Yeah, you're not ready for that. All this little stuff that you really don't, like you talked about with Emmett. Like Emmett knew this by the 3rd time he went. The Chiefs team's been here 4 times now. They pretty much know what to expect.
That's why when I asked him his favorite Super Bowl memory, he said it was the first one because it was all so surreal at that point. Like,
do you remember the NFL Films clip of him and Michael Irvin looking around the Rose Bowl? Like, look at this. Like, they're just wide-eyed. I mean, they played great that day. Obviously, it didn't affect them, but it's different. It's a different deal.
You mentioned the anthem, by the way. I would not want to follow Chris Stapleton. I mean, Chris Stapleton last year put on an anthem clinic. I would not want to have to follow that.
What's your favorite anthem? What's your all time? Is it Whitney?
It's Whitney, but I will say I think Stapleton was so good that I found myself at the moment saying that was almost Whitney.
I'd go with Marvin Gaye at the '83 All-Star game.
Yeah. So here's the thing with Marvin Gaye at the '83 All-Star game. He did the anthem different, right? And only Marvin Gaye could get away with doing that.
Only Marvin Gaye.
Anybody, I've played the anthem a bunch at major sporting events, and I'm very by the book, right? Like, you got a minute and a half, get in, get out. It's about the song. I would never be able to or try to attempt to pull off what Marvin Gaye pulled off. So the fact that he did it in a way that we still look back and we're like, yeah, just shows you the greatness of Marvin Gaye.
Goosebumps. All right, I'm giving you another one here.
All right.
I'm going to go with poker. A lot of strategy involved in poker, right? I like playing Hold'em. You do too. What's the key strategical part of this game you're looking at? I mean, these are 2 great coaches and great assistant coaches too. When Spags and Steve Wilkes and all them. What's the key strategic part of this game?
The usage of Fred Warner. the usage of Fred Warner is something that I am wildly excited to watch, because here's the thing. I keep saying in the useless debate of Brady versus Mahomes, which, by the way, is the equivalent of my dad can beat up your dad. Nobody can prove any of it. None of it matters. But in the useless debate of Brady versus Mahomes, the best way I can say my opinion on the difference between the two is that if you make a mistake, Tom Brady will take advantage of it. With Patrick Mahomes, he makes you make a mistake. That's the difference. Like, so you had to be perfect taking on Brady, which is almost impossible in a football game. Against Mahomes, even if you are perfect, you still have to make decisions. And whatever decision you make, if you make the wrong one at all, he forces you to do things that aren't natural, right? So looking at Fred Warner, it's going to be interesting because he's going to have to make the decision at times, depending on the defense they're in, he's going to have to make the decision on shadowing Kelsey and just trying to take that away, or being some sort of a spy for Mahomes. And if you're spying Mahomes, then are you moving up? Because if you move up, he's going to dink the ball over your head. Are you staying put? If you stay put, he's going to run around you, right? Like, so the number of times I think Fred Warner is going to be a huge part of this game, because he's going to have to decide between Mahomes and Kelsey and staying in the defense he makes. He's going to have to resist the temptation to make the natural play that's in front of him that feels like a huge play, because when he goes for that huge play, Mahomes will break that down. So I think the most interesting poker match here is genuinely what they do with Fred Warner.
That's really interesting, and he's such a key guy. He's a great player. And speaking to that, I saw on Twitter today, I wish I knew who I saw it from. Patrick Mahomes has not made one turnover-worthy play since Week 16. I mean, and that's not, for those Pro Football Focus does turnover-worthy plays. It's not turnovers. It's not you threw an interception. It is, that should have been picked off or whatever. Patrick Mahomes basically has not made one mistake since Week 16. Like, he's just playing unbelievable ball. And to force him into that, it's going to be hard. He plays perfectly in a lot of ways. He hasn't all year, but he has been lately. He's on that Patrick Mahomes kind of run. For me, I'm going with the other defense. I just wonder what Spagnuolo has cooked up for Brock Purdy. I think football could be an easy game to analyze sometimes, and it's Patrick Mahomes against Mr. Irrelevant, and that's probably not fair to Brock Purdy. He's played great all year. We have seen him make a few mistakes late in the year. The Ravens game, he made the mistake. It was the Packers. He had the turnover there, or there was Lions. And you just wonder, can Spagnuolo get him to turn the ball over? You've brought up this stat many times that in all the playoff wins for all the teams this season, only once has a quarterback had a turnover and won the game. Like, if you are not playing turnover-free football in these playoffs, you're not winning the game. Can Spagnuolo, with all of his crazy coverages, I mean, they have such a complicated defense, but they can run it because they're mostly a veteran defense. They've been together. He's going to throw so many looks at Brock Purdy. Can you get that one or two interceptions or whatever, fumble, whatever it's going to be out of Brock Purdy? You're probably not getting out of Mahomes. I don't plan on Mahomes making many mistakes in this game. Brock Purdy, I don't know if he will or not. And a lot of that is just what Spagnuolo throws at him and how Kyle counterpunches that and keeps his quarterback out of trouble. I think that's the biggest key to this game, is who plays turnover-free football. I think Mahomes will. I don't know if Purdy will. And a lot of that is what Spags has cooked up for him.
I keep going back to what we saw from Lamar. And what was interesting to me about Lamar against the Chiefs is that when he dropped back, A, he wasn't comfortable running, which means he wasn't comfortable with what was in front of him space-wise. B, even more importantly, he didn't let it rip much. Right? Like, he dropped back and it felt like he was confused about what he was seeing. He wasn't sure about what was there, and it kept him from getting rid of the ball quickly. I felt like the Ravens were out of sync because Spags did a beautiful job of confusing a quarterback that had an MVP year, right? So to your point, now you're taking on a quarterback that there's a real middle ground on, right? Like, everybody wants to say Brock Purdy sucks or Brock Purdy's great. Brock Purdy's a system quarterback or Brock Purdy's
amazing. It doesn't even matter. Like, it doesn't matter.
Again, it doesn't. But I think there's a fair way to say, hey, in the playoffs so far, Brock Purdy has started slow and he has ended well in every game. So what does that mean? That means that Brock does a really nice job in game of figuring out what he's seeing and then getting better. The problem is, early in the game, you got a combination of he starts slow, He's inaccurate when he starts slow at times, right? But we can blame weather sometimes, but inaccurate at times when he starts slow, taking on a defense that's going to confuse him. That is just an absolute holy trinity of things that results in a turnover. And to your point, early turnovers, what San Francisco doesn't want to get into is they're down 14-0 before they've even had a chance to really get this game going. Like this needs to be a back and forth, grinded out game for the 49ers.
I totally agree, because it's something we don't associate with the Chiefs. This is a defensive team. If you fill it out 14, you're not just piling up 35 points on them in a comeback. This is a good Chiefs defense. It's played great all year. To your point, like if you fall behind 14 zip, it's not necessarily your offense, it's their defense. How are you coming back on them? It's going to be a real challenge. You can't fall too far behind in this.
All right, we're just getting started on the Super Bowl coverage. And obviously, we've got to give you predictions. That's coming up. Plus, the one question everybody truly wants to have answered, I will ask it next when we come back. We're still hanging out in the Fan Cave at the Yahoo Sportsbook inside the Venetian Resort Las Vegas.
These fan caves are great.
The
just as good as it was week one. The logo, too. Wow, this is a production.
I'll tell you this at the end, too, by the way. We'll be back at the Venetian after the Super Bowl. Like, Frank's got to get all the way from Allegiant to Venetian, which might take 6 days, so it might be Monday, but we'll figure that out. Here's the real burning question, Frank. The world wants to know. What will happen more in the Super Bowl? Mentions of system quarterback or game manager, I'll call any of those, or views of Taylor Swift? What are we going to get more of? Like,
it's got to be Taylor. It's got to be. You have to play to the Swifties. There's 115 million people going to watch this game, maybe more because of Taylor. I don't know. Have we tracked her plane? Like, we know she's going to make it. If we get confirmation, I think she will. Yeah.
I mean, I'm really good friends with the drummer. She's going to make it. That's all I'm saying. She's going to make it. He is not, though.
Sources close to the situation.
Yeah, all indications that I've gotten is that Taylor Swift will be at the Super Bowl, but my buddy will not be. But if you're in Tokyo, go scream for Matt.
But you know, this is a game. This is an entertainment game. You have a lot of people watching this game who have no idea what Brock Purdy is. Like they
genuinely have people watching this game that want to see Taylor Swift.
Yeah, sure.
That's the
thing.
I'm
good with it. I'm totally good with it. I don't like the backlash. Taylor's good for the game. We've heard that all week. The Chiefs have been talking about it a ton, obviously. By the way, I think Travis Kelce reached his limit today of just talking about anything. He just seemed a little, let's lock in on the game. Like, he's a little, I'll say surly, but maybe not as happy as he was media night when you saw him, But anyway, they've been talking about it all week, and everybody's like, Taylor's great. She's awesome to be around. She's good for the game. She brings in a lot of people. I'm fine with CBS showing her a dozen times, whatever. Who cares? If your feelings are hurt, that's on you.
I asked repeatedly Chiefs players at Media Day, are you tired of the hype around Taylor Swift? And I didn't get a single yes. Everybody was like, nah, it's awesome. Like, this is really cool. And
Justin Reed today was talking about, I met her. She's awesome. She's great. Like, I like Taylor Swift. I'm not even the biggest fan of her music, but I like her because of how well she has handled all this.
And the Chiefs are about to murder you. Just clip off that he does. What I just heard is that Frank Schwab hates Taylor Swift songs.
Yes, bad blood. Never going to be played for me. But I think the Chiefs have handled this all well because it's different, right? Like, you're out of your element. You're not talking about football. All of a sudden, you're talking about Taylor Swift. But I think the Chiefs and Travis Kelce in particular have handled this really well this week.
I think there's a difference when you are wildly famous. Like you? There is there is a moment where, as I said to somebody last night, and I'm not talking about music, I'm just talking about when you talk about platform in the world. Right now, Taylor Swift is this generation's Michael Jackson. Wherever she goes, everybody wants to see it. Wherever she performs, people line up in the streets outside of the stadiums. They have to hide what hotel she's staying at because people try and hound her down wherever she is. She is not famous. She's an icon. At this point, she is a global icon. And this isn't about your fandom one way or the other. This is just the truth about the level of celebrity she has. And one of the curious things that Travis Kelce is going to have to figure out is when you are in a relationship with a global icon, things are different. Nothing is ever normal. Unfortunately, and I do mean unfortunately for him, that collides with Super Bowl week, right? Because it just creates a different conversation. That being said, I keep thinking back to what most Super Bowl parties are usually like. And Super Bowl parties are great because everybody comes in, everybody wants to hang out. You're playing squares, you got prop bets going all over the place. You're having a good time. But there's a third of the room that's there to see the commercials.
Yeah,
right. There's a third of the room that doesn't care about. Yeah, they want to see Usher. And I've been a part of the conversations with the people that make the decisions on halftime shows. And one thing that they're very adamant about is they want people that come in to the halftime show that would bring a non-football audience. So they want people that aren't watching the game otherwise. That's what they shoot for. And you think about that audience doesn't give a damn about the stats or Brock Purdy or any of that. Audience cares about Taylor Swift. I think they should show Tay-Tay repeatedly.
If they can get her to do the halftime show next year, because obviously that's what the NFL's angling for, right? Like, I mean, they gave her, the Eras movie, they gave free ad space for that. They're sucking up the Taylor a little bit. If they can get her to do the halftime show, for many people, it would be the halftime show around the Super Bowl. Like, I mean, it would be like halftime show, Super Bowl down here. And I think that would be, so this is part one of Taylor Swift being at the Super Bowl and kind of taking over a little bit of the narrative of the game, and I'm fine with it.
I don't think she ever does it. She has no win. Like, she's so popular right now, no matter what she does, somebody will tear it down. And so for her, this is like a weird in the weeds story, but when I was a little kid, I went to a master class with a very famous violinist when I was a kid at Juilliard. And I asked him, there's this huge violin competition. And I asked him why he's never competed in it. That was my question to him as a kid. And he's like, I have nothing to gain. If I go in and I win, all I did is what they expected me to do. And if I go in and lose, I've hurt my reputation forever. And I think that there is some element with Taylor where if you go in and you give the greatest halftime show the world has ever seen, people are still going to be like, yeah, of course. What'd you expect? And if any one thing is slightly off, it's like, she's overrated. Like,
what's your favorite halftime show all time?
Bruno Mars.
Oh, wow.
Bruno Mars at MetLife. I was there 8 rows off the field, jumping up and down. We had played, the band Perry played the pregame show that year for Fox. So they walked us in with the security escort, 8 rows off the field. And I'll never forget jumping up and down. Like, I think they're going to clip this off and hate me. I don't think Usher is necessarily a great halftime act music when it comes to the type of music he makes, because so much of it is like, Usher makes great baby making music, right? But when you're talking about the halftime show, it's this. It's like, there's an energy, and he's got some of those, but I'm genuinely curious to see, he's got 12 minutes. Is he going to go 12 minutes wall-to-wall bangers? Because what made the one great, that had all of the hip-hop and rap legends together was that it was pace after pace after pace. I was in the stadium for the Katy Perry one, and I had Katy Perry fans sitting behind me, and at the end of the halftime show, they were like, And it's not that Katie's not great.
I love
it's
Katie.
just that,
I thought Katie was one of my favorites. Yeah.
When in the stadium, I didn't see it on TV. In the stadium, it fell flat. But it fell flat because, like, you can't be a head bobbing. Coldplay can be popular all day long. They're not going to be a good halftime show because you can't do this. But Beyonce going to come out and she's going to and it's going to just hit at a different level. I'll be interested to see if Usher sticks to the, give me tempo, give me pace the whole way. I think he's going to try and make babies.
Could be pretty good. I'm looking forward. I don't know about any babies being made at Allegiant Stadium, but boy, that would be a halftime show.
Brett's now like, please God, move on. Brett, do you have anything to say from the couch about baby making at halftime at Allegiant Stadium?
No comments about the first. I'll say Prince is my vote for.
Prince is usually the one.
Okay.
I'll say my favorite moment was U2 in New Orleans. The 9/11 names behind them still gives me goosebumps. I'll watch it pretty much every year before the Super Bowl just to remind me of that moment. It was unbelievable.
That sentimental moment stands out. Prince, one of the absolute legends of music, that stands out. Also, to be very different on a halftime show that I'll always remember, I thought the year that they did Aerosmith and NSYNC and Britney, what made that great was that it felt like there were so many different styles coming together in one situation. I love that when they do that.
By the way, you know that I've never been asked to play the pregame show in a band. That's something that's where we kind of differ.
We could probably change that.
I don't even know what I could play, like maybe a kazoo or something. I don't even know if I have the musical talent for that. So, but very good for you, of course.
No, it was such a terrible show because here's your inside music story. We knew that the TV broadcast was going to play the third and fourth songs of the set. They do that commonly when you're doing a longer set, because they want to give you the first couple songs to sort of get into it. And then the third and fourth songs are the ones that they were taking to TV, which meant we had to switch our set list up because we opened with like one of our biggest songs, but we wanted that to be on the TV broadcast. So the whole set felt disjointed. But it also meant the minute we finished the fourth song in a 75-minute set, I knew that the world wasn't seeing the rest of it, and I was going to the Super Bowl. I mailed that show in. We got done with the fourth song, and I was just like, let's just get the hell out of here. The rest of the way. It was terrible. It was terrible. Like, I didn't even pack my, like, usually I was pretty good about packing my gear up carefully and everything. No, I immediately, we finished that. I immediately walked off the stage. There was this big, huge security escort. He's like, we ready? Oh man, I was in MetLife.
Before you even finished the question, you were out.
Yeah, Brett's telling us to move on. He doesn't like these stories. Super Bowl previews. Brett's just mad. Brett's just mad about baby making. Super Bowl previews. Oh, God, I love this. Super Bowl prediction, I should say.
You know, I came into I think we talked about this on Sunday Night Blitz, that immediately my thought was Chiefs. They're playing so well, Mahomes, all this. I've flipped. I think it's the 49ers. I think the 49ers were the better team all year. They weren't great in the playoffs, but I don't want to get caught up with recency bias. I'll tell you something. You've talked about music. I'll talk about gambling, something I know a little bit about. That the reverse line movement really is something I follow a lot. And to explain that, when all the money's coming in on one side and the line moves the other way, that tells you the smart money, the sharp money is on that team. All the money's coming in on the Chiefs early, but yet the line was moving towards San Francisco, moved from -1.5 to -2, -2.5 some places. That caught my eye and made me think, what am I missing here? And I really looked into it more. And I just think the 49ers have been the better team. Chiefs are the hotter team. I get that. It's hard to go against Mahomes. My goodness, I'm 0-3 going against Mahomes in the playoffs. What am I doing a fourth time going against Mahomes? But I just think that this 49ers team is better, and I'm not going to get caught up with recency bias. I'm going to go with the 49ers to win this game, and I'm going to go with Christian McCaffrey to win MVP.
What's hard for me is I'm a logic-driven person. And so my logic says the 49ers are the better team. But my logic also says Patrick Mahomes right now is as hot as any quarterback I can ever remember. And somehow, some way, they keep winning games I don't think they will. And that's what's stunning to me. Now, I thought, as we talked about last Sunday, that the Ravens' game plan on both sides of the ball against the Chiefs was awful. It was hot garbage, and it was poorly done. It was poorly executed. It was poorly planned. Everything about the Ravens, I think they killed themselves in that game. But Mahomes still won. And what's hard for me is that as much as I know the 49ers are a better football team, top to bottom, they're more talented, top to bottom. As much as I know that, I can't reconcile that in my brain with the fact that Patrick Mahomes doesn't lose these games. There's one reason Patrick Mahomes lost a Super Bowl, and that was because his offensive line was decimated that game, right? It was a shell of themselves sort of thing. The way you beat Patrick Mahomes is if you can absolutely get to him through that line. I think the 49ers can, and I'm still scared to pick them. For me, I'm taking the Chiefs in this game because I'm trying not to use my heart with the quarterback and coach. But at the end of the day, the best coach in the NFL is Andy Reid. The best quarterback in the NFL is Patrick Mahomes. And when I have the best coach and the best quarterback together, I can't pick against them. So I feel like this is another one of those ugly games. I feel like both teams are going to try and run the ball a lot. And
yeah, I took the under. Under 47.
We're both on the under. I am all in on Mahomes to win this game and be the MVP. I think the Chiefs win. Mahomes is the MVP. And I feel lame saying it. I'm the first to admit it, but I just can't stack the bricks on this side as much as they all stack up and pick against Mahomes.
Right, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people have talked about, maybe Pacheco is Super Bowl MVP. Maybe if the Chiefs win, Mahomes is going to be MVP because two reasons. Voters want to vote for Mahomes, right? Like quarterbacks win awards. And two, it's hard to envision a scenario where the Chiefs win this game, but Mahomes isn't good. At least good enough to put up, hey, I'm going to vote for this guy for MVP. So while I agree with the logic behind, hey, Pacheco is a good long shot MVP, I can't get there with that. Like with the 49ers, I can name a bunch of guys. I said Christian McCaffrey, but if you told me Debo wins MVP, I could see it. Kittle, we talked about him. Even a defensive player has a big game. If Bosa goes out and has 3 sacks, maybe he's MVP. I can't get there with the Chiefs. It's going to be Mahomes. If they win the game, Mahomes will win the MVP. I'd be shocked if it's otherwise. The thing about going against the Chiefs that worries me more than Mahomes is the defense. That Chiefs defense is good. We're not talking about
They're
that.
Great.
They're
great.
fantastic. They're on a roll. Like you talked about, They shut down Lamar Jackson. They limited Josh Allen. I mean, they've just been great these whole playoffs. And that's the one thing that worries me even more about going against Mahomes is going against that Chiefs defense because they are on such a roll right now. But I'm going to stick with it. I'll stick with the 49ers.
All right, so that's where we are. And because we haven't actually kept track of it this year, I can say that I've never missed a prediction, and Frank's missed all of them. So, you
something
know.
like that. You've seen my betting apps this week on college basketball, huh?
Oh, God. I mean, yeah, that's what we're going to spend the offseason trying to do is figure out how to help each other lose less money because it hasn't been a friendly playoff for me. I'm going to be honest. Like, I did well this regular season. I felt like things were good, but the playoffs have been tough. Like I said earlier, Sunday night, we are back here. We're going to be at the Venetian. We are going to do a Sunday night Blitz. Do you have an exit strategy to get out of Allegiant and get here? Like, we're on the other end.
I figured once Taylor Swift leaves that her entourage and escorts and all the police escorts can come back and pick me up and right? Like
No, that's not going to happen.
I don't think I can
that's
ride a wave on Tay-Tay after she's in her private jet.
If there was a Jeopardy category, things that will get Frank arrested, that would be for 1,000, please. Like that would be what is trying to become part of Taylor Swift's entourage.
I've tried to make the walk from Allegiant back to the Strip, so that's not going to happen. I've made that mistake before. It's not really smart. So we'll get here.
Well, the bridge is shut down.
We're just having a combination Super Bowl /draft show by the time I get back from Allegiant. But we'll do it.
We could do like they do on Watch What Happens Live and just put a TV screen or put your face up on the screen behind us, and then we'll just let you talk to us while you're FaceTime while you're it'll be riveting content. But we will be here Sunday for Sunday Night Blitz. We got one more Sunday Night Blitz to go, and then don't forget we're going to continue to work together throughout the course of the entire offseason. So just because the season is coming to an end doesn't mean that this show is coming to an end. It just means that we'll be hanging out a little less because we won't have to hang out Sunday or get to hang out Sunday night, I should say. Charles back on Tuesday with the exempt list. He'll have all the breakdowns you need there from the Super Bowl. And then you can, of course, follow us all on Twitter at Yahoo Schwab. Such a company, man. I love that. At Jason Fitz. Follow Stone at SJ Rochelle. Follow Brett at Brett Rader. And then, Brett, do you know Evan's Twitter handle off the top of your head? Does anybody know? See, we got a producer named Evan that didn't get me into the Gatorade party, and I'm still very angry about this. So I'm just going to, promote to people that maybe they should remind Evan that, everybody deserves an invite. Because Frank, I'm in a taxi. I'm just driving along. Frank says yes.
Why Sports Evan?
Y, the letter Y, Sports Evan. Feel free to give Y Sports Evan a little bit of love for not inviting me to the Gatorade party. Everybody else went to Frank, you have fun at the Gatorade party?
A lot of fun.
Did you get a personalized Gatorade bottle?
I did get a personalized Gatorade bottle. That was pretty cool. And I took a lot of Gatorade home with me because I just had the coolers outside. Like,
you took Gatorade home with you? Wow.
Well, you know what? Back to the room, not home. I don't think it's going to make it to Colorado, but
I went to a party that gave out free underwear, and I felt weird about that.
Yeah, that is a little weird.
Yeah,
right?
It was a clothing brand that was giving out some underwear, but I'm like, well, are we talking sizes? And then and then I'd be standing there like, what am I going to stand there and talk to Colin Cowherd, knowing that we're both holding a bag of undies? Like, I don't feel good about that. We don't feel good about anything that just happened. Leave us a 5-star review for the love of all things holy, or there will be more underwear talk in the future. Also, rate, subscribe, tell your friends, your family, enemies, tell everybody to hang out with us. We will be back next week if our livers survive. If we make it through this, we'll be back
50-50.
Yeah, we'll be back
like the coin toss prop in the Super Bowl. We're 50-50.
Yeah, we might. It might take a GoFundMe to get him out of jail after he tries to get him into Taylor Swift's entourage. But thanks for listening. Enjoy the Super Bowl.